Labor federally is scheduled to introduce its industrial relations legislation this week. Based on what I've seen in the public domain, there seems plenty to worry about for small business. Here's what Peter Dutton had to say about this today.
Why is the government motivated to do this when every business group, every organisation is against it? It's because it's on the union wish list. We want to see the sovereign risk issues addressed that the government's created for the first time in many decades.
Gerard, I think Peter Dutton's on the money there. How do you consider the change the government wants to make here?
Well, I think it's alarming because from my understanding of the bill, and I haven't gone through the ins and outs of it, is that this bill will actually give unions the right to come in and inspect the books of businesses without any prior notice or their approval. Now, if that's true, they can have access to all the employee and employer data, and I just think for a start that's a gross breach of privacy. But, you know, this will actually hurt small business the most, and of course this is Labor's modus operandi, where they love to attack small business and pick on the little guy. But can I just say, there is nothing more hypocritical than the Labor Party jumping up and down about so-called wage theft, and while I'll call it out when I see it, and where it does occur, that's a bad thing. But the true wage theft in this country has always been superannuation. There was never a referendum in 1992 where Paul Keating went to the Australian people and said, by 2025, are you happy for us to take 12% of your income and give it to someone you've never met in the ivory palaces of Sydney or Melbourne, and there's no guarantee you're going to get it back until you're 67. Now, if that to me is the true wage theft in this country, and that's what needs to be called out, and I'll look into it and I'll see if I can actually move an amendment this week to make superannuation optional, because I don't want to listen to the Labor Party talk about wage theft while they're condoning and forcing superannuation to go up to 12%. And there's been rumours that they actually want to lift it to 15% beyond 2025.
Yeah, I accept your point there. I quite like super, but what irks me with it is how can anyone plan for the long term when governments of all stripes, but most notably Labor, clearly think it's their money and they keep changing the rules and you know, to disadvantage people who have actually acted within the rules to save for their own retirement?
Well, the problem is, Corey, for people on low incomes, they just don't have a spare 12% left over after they've paid for the cost of living and their taxes to actually hand over and save until they're 67. And if you actually look at the figures today, and I'll grant that we haven't had a full generation of people come through superannuation for 40 years, we've still got 50% of retirees on a full pension. So that's exactly the same amount it was in 1992. So it's not even doing, superannuation isn't even doing the job it was supposed to of getting people off the pension. Yet we have the Productivity Commission costed the cost of superannuation with a whole battalion of financial engineers managing other people's money at $30 billion a year. If you want to talk about productivity, that has to be, you know, the lack of productivity in this country. The creation of that industry over the last 3 decades has had a massive drag on productivity.
Yeah, and no surprise who dominates it, the industry super funds, and they are a flow of cash through the Labor Party. No coincidence there.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.